Guys, the motivation thing, this happens a lot. Like everybody, unmotivated. Well, that means nothing by itself because it's relative to a price. Broad list versus niche list marketing. Yeah, I mean, listen, the general answer is you do both, but it really has to be guided. You can't just ask it that way because it kind of depends on what you're doing with your budget, what you're trying to do, right? So I think that the right way to start, no matter what, is to drill it down to zips or zips that are alike, where you can target in smaller groups and then just add more of those. In terms of like broad, meaning all the absentee owners in an area versus broad, like all the absentees in the area versus niche on some of your different motivation factors, like that gets a little bit different, right? So now you're talking about the list stacking stuff or different pieces like that. Now, again, you're using terms, you got to, just like we talk about every week with this marketing stuff, you got to be careful. As soon as you start hearing yourself using things like broad versus niche, like what exactly does that mean? You got to get that like way tighter down because there's a limit. You know, there's a limit to the cost and the time involved where you can spend too much time and money trying to stack, and where like you would have been better served just dropping more marketing. Now, here's the thing, and kind of what you're saying here that I want you to maybe just check your thinking on and see if you can see this a little bit differently. So you said, seems like my broad is pulling in too many tire kickers, right? So when you go broad, right, without these other motivation factors, sure, you're going to get a lot more of that. But that's why you're marketing, like whatever you're dropping to them, whatever the channel is you're using, that has to be in alignment with the list you're hitting. You go broad when you're just trying to get in front of more people through mass channels like text or, you know, different things like that. But they're meant to come, it's a funnel, it's a higher up on the funnel, and they're meant to come through some stuff to funnel down. You know, so what are you doing? I think you're texting to him, Henry, is that right? So you're texting out of what system? Smarter Contacts. You're texting out of Smarter Contacts. How many a day? And cold calling with call tools. So how many texts a day? That's really the better question I should ask you, right? So like, depending on how many texts a day you're sending or you're trying to send, that's going to change your list. And depending on the system and depending on how frequently you can hit them and all those different things, it's going to change the list that you have to pull. Sometimes you have to go broader. You just want to. So you're sending 500 to 800 a day with your VA, right? And then your VA is having the conversation. So, I mean, if you're saying, okay, I'm having a lot of, how'd you do it? Tire kickers. Then there's two components. There's the list that you're inputting, right? And then there's the conversation the VA is having with them. So maybe something's off in that conversation. They're not asking for the Zillow value. Okay, well, I mean, asking for the Zillow value doesn't necessarily, like, that's going to be part of what happens in this marketing. They don't know what it's worth, so they Google the address, right? And they just take the Zillow number. So that should be something that you guys, when you're getting on the phone or you're trying to communicate with these people at the next level, like that should be a very normal thing that they know, that you guys know how to rebut. You guys get that a lot, the Zillow thing? I mean, I always joke about like the Zillow value that they're quoting, like that company just lost $1 billion on real estate investments based on that Zillow value. Like that doesn't mean anything. What do the comps actually say? That's when you just have to be good at being like, yep, I know Zillow says this, but this property here sold for this, and it just had everything redone in it, and your number is the same, and you're telling me that like no work's been done to it. So, I mean, clearly it's not worth that. Yeah, I mean, listen, guys, the motivation thing. So this happens a lot. Like everybody, unmotivated. Well, that means nothing by itself because it's relative to a price. Right? Like the unmotivated thing and being able to get the deals is your whole job. Like that's everything you're doing as a wholesaler. These deals aren't going to fall under line. Like you have to be able to get your value in there, right? And that happens through some of these conversations. So these are things you're just gonna have to get used to rebutting. And honestly, like if you have it so much lead flow that stuff doesn't make sense to even like go deeper in the conversation, cool, put them in a follow-up, let your system or your VAs or whatever, let it go hit them again in a month. Go hit them again. Hey, you still looking for it? You still looking to sell the property? Would you consider this? Would you like just get movement on them and start the engagement? It's just they're at a different point in the sales cycle than probably what you're looking for. Like not every person is going to be a home run. That's part of what you have to do.